Good evening, everyone. Charlotte here from Enriching Environments on this Tuesday evening for your Top Tip Tuesday Masterclass. And this week, Wiggly has joined me. You can see her little tail there. She's sitting on my lap. And we're going to be speaking about embodied parenting this week. Thank you for everyone who's joining. And thank you for your patience, because this session was planned for last Tuesday, which was just a few days after I did a presentation at the Parenthood UnConference in Abu Dhabi. What date was that I did that? 4th of November. And my talk was one of the final sessions, the closing sessions at the Parenthood UnConference. It was on Yas Island in the Etihad Arena. And my session was about embodied parenting. And so that was a nice long session. That was sort of an hour and 10 minutes, that session. So I wanted to give you all a taster of what came up in that session. Hi, Ivana. And everything that came up in that session, what's come up since. And I also want to let you know about a really exciting program, Embodied Parenting program, that we're going to be doing at the beginning of 2023, the beginning of next year, which next year is only 2 months away. No, less than 2 months, 6 weeks away. So firstly, let's dive in. Thank you everyone for joining, and let's begin our embodied parenting journey. And this evening, that's what we're going to be going on. We're going to be going on a journey inside ourselves, just a little sneak peek of what the possibilities are for embodied parenting and what that means for our connecting. Hi Jenny. What that means for connecting with ourselves and what that means for connecting with our children, understanding ourselves and understanding our children. So as we begin, what I'd love to invite you into first of all is, and we're gonna go through this session this evening in the same way that I went through the talk at the Parenthood UnConference in Abu Dhabi. And the way that I began that was to invite everyone to feel, to put one hand on their heart and maybe close your eyes if that feels comfortable for you, but wherever you are, place one hand on your heart and ask yourself this question: what feels alive in me right now? What feels alive in me right now? And for the first few moments when we do this type of practice of intentionally going within, it can seem a bit unfamiliar, it can seem a bit embarrassing, can feel a bit uncomfortable. And as soon as we close our eyes and we go within, we can start thinking about what we need to do tomorrow. We can start thinking about our shopping list, how we're going to prepare the children's lunch boxes for tomorrow. That's my favorite. But what I'd really like us to do is really gently and compassionately is come back to the present moment. And everyone who's joined, what we're doing is just place one hand on your heart, and if you feel comfortable, close your eyes. And we are breathing into this question, and this question is: what feels alive in me right now? And that's really to become familiar, to become comfortable with our inner landscape, what's happening within us, in our body, without the thoughts there, without the story and the narrative there. Hi Zara, good evening. Hi Naila. What is happening inside our bodies? Really feel into that. And we don't need to attach thoughts, stories, anything else to it. Just the sensations with our bodies, within our bodies. What feels alive in me right now? What is rising up within me right now? And we're just going to have 10 more seconds of being in that space, holding ourselves in that space, of feeling, sensing what's there. And when you feel ready, you can open your eyes. And maybe some neck rolls might feel good. Maybe a few stretches. And as we come back into the room, what I have just taken you on in just that 1-2 minutes we were doing that practice, that is what embodiment is. To me, embodiment is feeling into our inner world, feeling into our inner landscape. What is happening within, without our logical thinking brain attributing meaning, attaching meaning to everything. What is happening inside in our body? What sensations are there? What textures are there? What feelings are there? What noises are there? What is happening in our inner landscape? And that is what embodiment is. And as we go further into this session, before we go further into this session, what I'd love for us to do is to all set an intention for this evening. What would you like to receive from this transmission? How would you like to feel when this masterclass is finished? So you can set your intention. If you've got a little card, your journal in front of you to take notes, then write that down in your journal. How do you want to feel by the end of this session? And I'll give you a few moments to do that while I take a sip of water. And then we can dive into the nuts and bolts of embodied parenting. What it is, as I said in the title, what, how, and why. So, embodied parenting, I hope you've all had a chance to write down your intention for this evening. And so those two things, those two little practices there, writing down our intention, setting an intention, and feeling into ourselves, asking ourselves the question, what feels alive in me right now? Those two are embodiment practices. Intentionally going within and calling upon our inner wisdom. And embodiment is exactly that, the wisdom of our body. All of the answers we need are inside of ourselves. We have lost connection and contact with our gut instinct and our intuition because of the way that Western society is constructed. We are very much dependent upon our right brain in order to do the methodical things and the things that need us to be logical and problem solving, and we aren't enough in our bodies and feeling in our intuition and gut instinct. And this very much is symptomatic of the vast majority of us in the Western world, so don't feel bad if you are in that position of really rationalizing everything and trying to make everything logical and trying to make everything fit. The way that society and education and our structures in society, all of that is created in a way where we need to be very, very practical and very much think with our brain rather than think with our body. And what embodiment is, embodied parenting is really thinking with our body, as it were. So it's feeling, it's going into our body. And the reason this is so interesting for me, this way of actually being in our body and living through our body, living our experiences through our body, and tuning into our intuition and tuning into our inner wisdom, is that children, and if you have young children, or you teach young children, or you observe, you're in the presence of young children, you'll notice that they are naturally embodied. And by that I mean they experience the world with all 5 of their senses in the first 6 years of life, and that is the natural stage of development for all children all over the world, regardless of race, culture, background. All children experience the world through all 5 of their senses in the first 6 years of life. And why that's interesting is due to the stage of their brain maturity, and they can't self-regulate, and they don't have a developed prefrontal cortex for rational thinking and logical thinking and problem solving. The gift that gives children and the gift that gives us is that they are in the present moment. They are not rationalizing and thinking if this is the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do. They live when they are joyful. You see it and you live it and feel it. And when they are not joyful, when they're having a tough time, you see it. It's right in front of you. They show exactly how they are feeling through their body. And so they are deeply connected. They are fully in integrity, always. They are always honest in their communication. They are in the present moment, and that teaches us so much, doesn't it? Because we can be taken up in the adult world with our preoccupations and what's going on, our responsibilities, our worries, all of those things. But children, if you are with a toddler, for example, no matter how stressed or worried you are, when you see a toddler then jumping in a puddle of water and really embodying that joy and that wonder they have in the natural world, that can melt away so much of our thoughts and our unhelpful patterns of thinking and being that no longer serve us. A child shows us what it's like to be in the present moment. A child shows us what it's like to experience the richness of life in that moment, moment by moment. And that is the gift that children give us. And the gift that embodied parenting gives us is it helps us understand ourselves more and our inner landscape, which helps us understand our children more. And then that's a spiral, because the more we understand our children, the more we understand ourselves, and the more we understand ourselves, the more we understand our children. And so embodied parenting gives us 5 gifts. These 5 gifts that as I say, help us to understand our children, help us to understand ourselves. Those 5 gifts are: our children, every human, has their own essence, their own path, their own road to travel. And that is a gift to us, because what can be really, really hard as a parent is to not project what we want them to do or we want them to be, from whether it's a toddler or whether it's our teenager or whether it's our adult, our grown-up child. So the gift of embodied parenting is that we honor our child's essence as who they are. They may be, a very simplistic example might be, we are an extrovert and our child is an introvert, and we find it very difficult in social situations when we want to go in and we're the life and soul of the party, but our child is an introvert and doesn't want to interact. And then there's a perception that child's being rude because they're not saying hello to people, and they're reserved, they don't want to shake hands, and they don't want to make eye contact, and all of those things. And that can be really challenging for us as parents, because we in some way want our children to be a mirror of us. In some way we want our children to fulfill societal expectations, and it can be challenging when they don't. So the first piece of embodied parenting is honouring who we are and honouring who our child is. And this is important because we are 2 separate beings. We are 2 separate individuals with our own path and our own lessons and our own gifts and our own wounds and all of those things. And being able to separate ourselves from our child so that we are not attached to the outcome of their behaviour, of their academics, of their sporting achievements, any of those things. Can we honour them as they are, perfect, whole and complete, in this moment in time or any other moment in time, without our projection? That's a big one to start with, I know. And it's the tiny ways that we do it. And we are, what's so wonderful, you know, with the parents that I work with and the educators that I work with, it feels like here in Western society, we are just so much more aware than we have ever been of what we're bringing to the table when we are in the presence of children, whether it's our own children or in children in the classroom or the kindergarten as educators. We are more and more aware that how we see the child in front of us is not how the child is, but actually more from our wounds and our projections and our stories. And the reason I love Dr. Montessori in particular, her spiritual preparation of the adult is what she calls it, is she calls on us to tear out the roots of our prejudice. One of my favourite quotes is, "The child is new every day." So that really calls upon us to be in the present moment with our child, and no matter what the behaviour was, how they were yesterday, and what they were working through, how emotional or not they were yesterday, the child is new every day. So that really calls us to honour their essence and the soul of who they are and their journey every single day. And the magic in this is that then our child becomes this beautiful mirror of the parts of us where we are judging ourselves, or we have high expectations of ourselves, or we have a wound from our childhood to be looked at, where we didn't meet our parents' expectations. And it's just this beautiful mirror that keeps bouncing back, reflecting back. The more we know our child, the more we know ourselves. The more we know ourselves, the more we know our child. And so this first one, this piece of honouring our child's own essence and path, or the child in the classroom's own essence and path, this can really take us on a really deep journey of self-discovery. The second gift of embodied parenting is knowing that our attachment to our child, if we're a parent, or the children in our classroom if we're an educator, that is for if you're a parent and you're interacting with your own children, attachment is the foundation of all of their relationships that they will have in the future. The primary relationship they have with parents will set the scene for the same dynamic in relationship with friends, the type of work environment that they will seek out, and the type of relationships they'll have with work, and most importantly, their life partner, their romantic partner, their husband, their wife. Their blueprint of how to be in relationship, the good, the bad, and the ugly bits. This is provided from the parents, and that's not to scare us. It's just for us to know that our attachment is so important with our child. So what we can do is not allow things to get in the way, like rewards and punishments, for example. That gets in the way. That disrupts the connection that we have with our child, because children don't need rewards. It is a human tendency, a natural human tendency for all of us to self-actualize, to want to do better, self-improvement and mastery and exactitude. All of those qualities of us improving ourselves, the growth mindset, as it were, is innately within each of us. So we don't need to use bribery or manipulation or slightly underhand tactics like rewards or stickers or excessive praise in order to get our children to do something, because they already want to. Their connection with us is that they want to do well, because that is where the connection is formed. So we don't need to manipulate them into doing well or to doing better. They really want to anyway. And then the other side of that is when we recognize that attachment is the foundation for all future relationships. It's the blueprint. Then we know that punishments are really ineffective, and the way that we behave in terms of if we're punishing our child when they're little by sending to their room or spanking or any of these behaviors that cause this disruption in the parent-child connection, then that is something that they will seek out in some way. That type of unhealthy dynamic of punishment, that's what they will seek out as adults. And so that's why looking at attachment is the core foundation for future human relationships. And then that's a gift for us, because then we can look in our own attachment and our own attachment styles. And this goes into, we can go quite deep into this, and this is what we'll do in my Embodied Parenting course, my program next year, is we look at attachment styles, and then we see where we are, and then we see possibly where there are wounds, what gifts we had from our attachment style with our parents, what wounds we had from there, and then what are we seeking to work on and improve and cultivate in our relationship with our children. What areas do we want to nurture, and what areas do we not need to nurture because we had those healthy relationships and healthy examples when our children were little. And for educators, the attachment that children have with educators, any important adults in the early years, is absolutely vital, because very often this is the first relationship that a child will have with an adult outside of the home environment. So that means that the attachment, the connection we build with those young children, these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-year-olds, if we are the first important adults outside of their family, then this is a big responsibility we have. So again, we're not using rewards, we're not using punishments. We rely on our connection with the child, this deep connection that we forge with the child. And in the school environment, it takes a couple of weeks, a couple of months, it may take the whole of the first term to really build that connection of trust from this foundation of attachment. And also, what's another important thing to note is that the way that we interact, the adults in the environment interact, is often the first way that young children see adults interacting outside of their family. So again, the respect that we pay with our colleagues, the respect that we pay to our peers in the nursery, in the kindergarten, in the school, children are observing and watching that. So that's really important, again, for their attachment foundation. How do other adults interact with each other? How do other adults interact with me? What is the connection that I have with them? Are they manipulating me with stickers and, sitting under the cloud or sitting under the rainbow? Or is this a mutual relationship of trust and respect? So knowing that, our second gift in embodied parenting, this opens up so much for us of what we already know about child development, what we already know about attachment styles, and how we attach to primary caregivers in the early years is this blueprint for future relationships. And as I say, when we go into my course that will start in February of next year, this will be a really, really deep dive of understanding where we are and how we can cultivate and nourish and nurture our relationship with our children in different ways. Excuse me, where's the water? The third gift of embodied parenting for me is that emotional expression is part of the human experience. And so our children, particularly if they're in the early years, they are going to scream with delight when they're happy, and they're going to scream with anger when they're not happy. And both of those are equally accepted and welcome. Actually, accepted isn't the word, welcomed. And of course, the resulting behavior from anger, frustration, disappointment may be something that we will guide over time. It may be something that isn't very sociable. They may kick things or break things or hit people when they're disappointed or angry or sad. And the actual behavior itself is something for us to guide, and children will grow into healthy ways of expressing all of this full range of emotions with time and with our guidance. But the first piece is all emotional expression is part of being human. And we can think in that, how are we showing joy? Are we showing joy in the way that we live? And how are we showing disappointment? How do we handle disappointment? How do we handle anger? Children are always watching us. So are we trying to hide our anger? Are we trying to hide our upset or our disappointment and pretend everything's normal with our children when really we're absolutely fuming? Are they feeling an energy from us that's then confusing? Or what we would do in embodied parenting is we would allow all of our feelings to be there. And if we are having a tough time and we need to take a moment, then we are open and expressive with that with our children. And the more that we give them that gift of emotion, showing that emotional expression is normal and it's healthy, and the way that that manifests in behavior is what we want to support our child with. But mainly it's usually us. The main focus for us is when our child is having a tantrum, is for us not to have our own tantrum, and for us not to do the shouting or the slamming of the door or the shaming or the banging things down or screaming at them to be quiet. The child is having a tantrum, and the best thing we can do is make sure we're not having our own tantrum. And don't get me wrong, we all do it, we all get angry, we all shout sometimes, and we are doing the absolute best we can to work on ourselves so that we don't exhibit those behaviors, but they do happen sometimes. And with embodied parenting, our gift there is to acknowledge and be vulnerable in those spaces of this happened, and not move into guilt and shame and all those things, but be in that space of, I made a mistake and I want to do this differently next time. I'm going to try to do things differently next time. And then we work on strategies so that the full emotional expression of joy and wonder and love and all of those things are shown, and they really express through our body, so our child sees what joy looks like in someone else. And so that connection they have to themselves in the early years, that isn't lost with the pressures of the world and stress and responsibility and all of those things. What we want to do is show that emotional expression is human, it's natural, and it is healthy to express, and then we guide if there's less than desirable behaviors as a result of negative emotions. The fourth gift of embodied parenting is presence, and that means being present with our child and being present with ourselves. And when we're in a tough moment with our children, we're in a tough moment with ourselves, we don't need